Hey there! Today I want to talk about nib materials. I have done a video quite a while ago on nib types, nib widths, extra fine, fine, medium, broad, etc. I've done a video on specialty nibs, italic nibs, oblique nibs, music nibs, etc. But I want to talk about nib materials, and one of the reasons is that recently I did a video which was entitled "Are Expensive Pens Worth It?" And I touched on this topic there, but I don't think I really go into it, and I think it's an integral part of the fountain pen experience. So I'll ramble a bit, and then I will do writing samples with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 pens with all kinds of different nibs, different nib materials, etc. Okay, I remember the days of old. When fountain pens came to be, I think all nibs were made of gold. Because gold was the de facto material people turned to in that day and age. I'm not sure whether it was more difficult to process steel, or whether steel was looked down on or something, or they just couldn't make nibs out of steel because it was too hard. I have no idea. But in the good old days, you had gold nibs and very little steel nibs. Now, today, manufacturing processes have really improved drastically, and some of the steel nibs that you can purchase are very, very good. If you buy a Faber-Castell steel nib, then I promise you that it will not underperform a gold nib. And there are many other brands that offer this type of stuff. Brian Gray from the Edison Pen Company wrote an excellent article which is entitled "In Praise of Steel Nibs." You can access that from edisonpen.com, in which he explains the differences between gold and steel nibs. I think it's a worthwhile read. I think it's important to realize that gold nibs are not inherently better than steel nibs. Yes, some steel nibs will be scratchy, but some gold nibs will be too. So it's not inherently better. They will be more expensive, but quality is not always a function of price. So the idea that steel is cheap and that it is poor quality, I don't think that's entirely true, not always. An interesting thought that a lot of people have, and this is a question I get a lot, is do gold nibs flex more? Do they allow for more line variation? Well, that's a logical thought. Gold is a softer metal than, stainless steel, for example. But you have to realize that a gold nib is not a solid gold nib. If it would be a 24-karat gold nib, then it would wear down very, very quickly. And if you would apply pressure on the nib, the two tines would open and they would not spring back. So you would have sprung your nib. And the reason for that is that it's so soft. It doesn't have any, springiness to it. At least that's the way I understand it. Now, usually a gold nib can be 14 karat or 18 karat. Sometimes you see 21 karat. The higher the carat, the more gold content. And, the other parts in there, it's just an alloy, right? 14 karat gold is 58.5% gold. And the rest of it will be other metals. If those metals are extremely hard, then your nib may not flex at all. I will show you a gold nib 14K which has zero flex. So the idea that simply because a nib is gold it will automatically flex is not entirely true. There will be gold nibs that flex, but there will also be gold nibs that don't flex at all and will be as hard as a steel nib. Then there are some steel nibs that do flex, but those are specialty nibs, flex nibs. Another question I get quite a bit is, what about gold plating? Well, here you have a gold nib, and here you have a gold plated nib. What's the point of that? Aesthetics? That's pretty much it. If you take a steel nib and you put gold over it, it will look like it's gold. And a lot of people like that. They like that look. But it won't alter the quality of the nib. It will not make a steel nib more flexible. How could it do that? You just add a layer of gold to a hard steel nib. So that's something you should take into consideration. Something else is that bear in mind that the actual bit of the nib that is touching the paper, even if you have an 18 karat gold nib, the bit that is touching the paper is not gold. It's, it used to be iridium, and now it's usually some other hard metal or maybe an iridium alloy. The real nib tipping right there, those round balls, they touch the paper, and they're not gold. If you would make those of gold, your nib would wear down really, really quickly. So it's not necessarily the case that a gold nib is smoother, because it's iridium touching the paper or some other hard metal, not gold. Finally, there are some other nib materials which are being used increasingly, and the reason for that is that gold prices have skyrocketed. Gold has become very, very expensive. So manufacturers are looking into other metals. One such metal would be titanium. Stipuli uses that, for example. It looks like a dull gray. I know this won't really focus, but it's a dull gray. It's not really shiny. Very interesting material. I'm glad I got this nib. It's different. It has a bit of feedback when you write. Not unpleasantly so, but a bit of feedback. You have to get used to that. But it's quite flexy. It's interesting because I didn't expect it. I thought titanium would be very hard. And there are other metals like palladium. Some people say palladium. In all honesty, I have no idea how to pronounce it. I just say palladium because I like that word. Palladium is another metal which can be used. This is 23K palladium, and it's a very nice nib material. I have one nib, I think, that has palladium. This one, I'm sure this one has it. And those are really nice nibs, quite springy, very nice, very smooth. So just to give you an idea, I hope this was a little bit useful. I wasn't rambling too much. I hope there was some information in this you could use. I think it's very interesting to have a look at just some writing. So very, very quickly, I'm going to show you a steel nib. This is a Jinhao 505, a cheap Chinese pen with a cheap Chinese steel nib. Faber-Castell Ondoro. This is a Faber-Castell nib made of steel. Very good nibs. Faber-Castell nibs are fantastic, I think. Very, very smooth. I'm going to show you a nudeless Ahab. This has a steel flex nib. I'm going to show you a Kaweco Sport Classic. These have 23 karat gold plated nibs. Visconti Opera Elements, solid 14 gold nib with a lot of spring. I'm going to show you Platinum Music nib. That's a 3776 pen with a music nib. 14 karat gold nib. Very nice. No flexibility whatsoever. I'm going to show you a Mont Blanc 344. 14 karat gold nib. Extreme flex. I'm going to show you an 18 karat gold nib on this Master 360. I'll show you a 21 karat gold nib on a Sailor 1911 large. I'll show you the titanium nib on my Stipula Model T. And finally, a Visconti Homo sapiens lava steel oversized. The name is too long. Visconti nib, 23 karat palladium. I hope this is going to be useful. I hope the writing sample will make stuff clearer, and I hope this was useful at all. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and that's all there's to it. So I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pens. Different nib materials, different nibs. I've tried to be a little consistent in nib width, but I just don't have every nib material and every nib width. So you'll have to bear with me. I hope this is going to be useful regardless. So we will start with steel. This is a steel nib. This is from Jinhao pen, which is a fairly cheap brand from China. The Quick Brown Fox. I won't speak. I want you to listen to the sound the nib makes. Right? You can sort of deduce the scratchiness. I'll try to explain what I feel, but if you listen to it, you may hear it. The nib is nice, it is smooth, but I have smoothed it out myself a little. It is wet, but I have made it a little wetter. But in any case, I just don't have an out-of-the-box steel nib that I don't really like, that I haven't worked on. As you can see, it gives you a little bit of line variation when you push down on it, but it's not extremely pronounced. Still, it's not bad at all. So this, if you're really interested, this is a Jinhao 505. Then we have a somewhat more expensive steel nib. This is steel. This is a Faber-Castell Ondoro, right? I started to doubt myself. Okay, listen to the sound it makes. Very smooth. Smoother than the Jinhao, but these Faber-Castell nibs are crazy. It's amazing how smooth they are. I really, really love them. So, just taking a sip of tea there, sorry. It's amazing how smooth they are. When it comes to line variation, well, there is some, but it's not extremely pronounced. I would be inclined to say that the Jinhao offers more flex. But for a steel nib, it's not bad. Now, there will be those among you who will say, yeah, but it's a steel nib, so it cannot flex at all. You cannot have steel nibs that flex. Well, that's not true. Here we have a noodler's Ahab. You saw that coming, right? Noodler's Ahab to the rescue. Now listen to the sound this makes. This is the scratchiest nib I've used so far, from these three. It's not terrible, but it gives a bit of feedback, and you shouldn't forget this is in, well, at least a fine, if not extra fine, but at least a fine, I'd say, whereas this one is broad and this one is medium. So the finer the nib, the more likely it is to be a little scratchy. It's not annoying at all, but I want you to hear the difference. Now that looks pretty fine, but this is flex. So if you think steel nibs can never flex, they can. It's that simple. Now before we move to gold, we have to talk about gold plating. So this is pretty much a cosmetic thing, something done for aesthetics. Strangely enough, this is a Kaweco Sport Classic, one of my favorite pens. This is like the Yoda of fountain pens. It's small, but don't mess with this because it will screw you up. It's a serious pen. I love it. Works fantastically. I hope there's enough ink in here to run. This was steel, by the way. Here we have 23 kgp. KGB? Not yet. This is not actually KGB, it's KGP, carat gold plating. And this is a Kaweco. I'm not going to write down Sport Classic, it's too long, but I've told you that now. Listen. It's pretty quiet, right? Almost no resistance on the paper. Very, very nice. Line variation? I don't think so. There's a little bit, but it's really, well, okay, not that bad. It's not extremely pronounced. Now, interestingly enough, there seems to be gold plating on the nib tipping. Maybe not the underside. It's difficult to see, but of course that would be kind of strange. It should wear down, so I'm not sure how they do that or why they do it. But it looks like it. Another sip of tea. Okay, now we move to serious pens. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these, but now we get serious. 14K Visconti OE, Opera Elements. Listen to this. Solid 14 karat gold nib, beautiful line variation. Look at that. That is some serious line variation. This is a, I would say, above average springy nib. Beautiful, rides very, very smoothly. I absolutely love this nib. It's one of my all-time favorites. Now, some of you are going to say, yeah, of course it has flex, it's a gold nib. That's wrong. Not all gold nibs have flex. People seem to think that's the case, but in all honesty, it's not. By the way, my finger, look at what's going on here. God, I'm getting all messed up again. Here we have a 14K nib. This is platinum. well, you can read it. Platinum 3776 music. Music nib means it's italic, so this will give you some natural line variation because it's not a round nib. It's sort of flat at the end. Well, flat. I mean, you know what I mean. Have a look at my video on specialty nibs if you don't know what a music nib is. That's no problem, but then you can find it out there. Listen. Fantastically smooth. A joy to use this nib. One of my other all-time favorites. But the only line variation this gives is because of the shape of the nib. So these lines are broad, these lines are fine. If I apply more pressure, this is what happens. No pressure, a lot of pressure. You see any difference? I don't. No pressure, well, that was a little too less. No pressure, a little pressure. A lot of pressure, a bit of pressure, almost no pressure. These tines, even though this pen has 3 tines, they don't open up. You can do whatever you like to them, but they are not going to open up. This is not going to give you flex. So the idea that every gold nib will give you flex is wrong. 14K means that only 58.5% of the nib is actual solid gold. The rest of it is other metals. It's an alloy. And whether something's flexy or not, I'm not a metallurgist, I don't know how to pronounce it. But in any case, those other metals will also depend whether your pen, your nib, is flexible or not. Okay, now there are some nice exceptions. Here we have a 14K vintage Mont Blanc, and the Mont Blanc lovers among you will know that this is going to be spectacular. This is a fine nib. It's pretty smooth, has a touch of feedback, you probably hear that. Compared to this sound, right? But this is a nib from the good old days, when even the cheap pens Mont Blanc made had 14K nibs, and look at this. This is me hitting the side of the nib. I should hold it a little higher. See? That is extreme flex. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And that's 14K too. So 14K can be springy, flexy, or as rigid as a nail. So don't think that simply because you're getting 14K you'll get a flex nib, because you won't. All I'm saying. Okay. 18K. This is an Amas 360, the original beautiful triangular model. I like that better than the new model, I have to be honest. Listen to this. No resistance on the paper. I love it. I love this nib. Line variation? Sure. Not extremely pronounced, but it is a fine nib to start with. But it doesn't give you as much spring as the 14K, whereas 18K is 75% solid gold, so you might expect, based purely on the gold content, it would be, softer and have more spring. As you can see, it doesn't. Then we have 21K. Now this is going to be a wide line because this is a zoom nib. If you're not sure what that is, check out my review of the Sailor 1911 with zoom nib. 21K. This is almost like a felt tip pen. It's amazing. Sailor 1911. Oh, look at that. Listen to that beautiful sound. Fantastic pen. Beautiful nib. Flex. Well, maybe a little bit, but these nib tines don't really seem to open up. And you would expect that being at 21K, right? Then we have titanium on a Stipula Model T. Sounds maybe a little scratchy. It doesn't feel scratchy. It has a type of feedback that you need to get used to, and that's just all there's to it. It's a difficult, no, not a difficult. It's a different type of nib. You just have to get used to it. It does offer flex. The idea of this nib is it's a one-size-fits-all nib. That's why they use titanium for its flex capability. So it goes from pretty much fine to pretty much broad. And it gives you flex. I didn't expect that. I thought titanium was extremely hard, and therefore it just wouldn't flex, but it does. So sometimes you can be surprised. And then the final nib I have for you is 23K palladium. So all of these Ks have been gold, and now we move to 23K. I'll put palladium there. This is a Visconti. I'm not even going to write down the whole name because it's Visconti Homo sapiens steel oversize. One of the longest pen names in the history of pens. Marvelous. You can probably hear it. It sounds like there's no resistance, and basically there is none. Gives a bit of flex too. It's beautiful. It's smooth. Fantastic nib material. I'm loving this. So there you have it. I have shown you steel nibs with and without flex. I've shown you a 23 karat gold plated nib. I've shown you 14 karat gold nibs, 18 karat, 21 karat. I've shown you titanium, and I've shown you 23K palladium. And that's all I can do. So I hope this answers your questions on nib materials, amount of flex you can expect, etc. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment. And well, that's pretty much all there's to it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later.